under the new Relic AI umbrella, we released something called AI Assistant. It's called Grok, before Mr. Musk stole that name. There's roughly about 30 million software engineers in the world, but the estimation is out of that 30 odd million, only about 2 million deal with observability on a consistent basis. Yeah.
So do you also see a scenario, AI gets matured and reaches such a stage that you don't need observability platforms at all?
I hope that's not the case.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Tech Talks. Today we have with us Ashan Willy, the CEO of New Relic AI, one of the leading observability platforms. Welcome. So excited to have you here.
Thanks, Pritam. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So Ashan, to begin with, and just to set some context to our conversation here, right? Can you tell us a bit about New Relic?
Yeah. Sure. So New Relic is a company that was incepted in 2008, and it was started by a gentleman by the name of Lou Cerny, the founder, and he's still here. He really invented the observability market, and 2008, the big push at the time, the invention then, which doesn't seem like an invention now, was to move all of the observability into the cloud. Because what's observability is essentially getting a lot of data. It's big data at low latency, being able to query that, and you have to give us all your data to do that. And so that's how we started it. So that was sort of the innovation there. So that was New Relic, back in 2008. Since then, we have grown and become synonymous with observability, right? As you know, and so we feel observability is in sort of its third phase, and we're in that third phase, defining sort of that third phase, where roughly around 80,000 plus customers, right, all over the world. In India itself, we have close to 12,000 customers.
Okay. So what do you mean by when you say third phase?
Yeah, so I think the first phase of observability was defined by taking all of this to the cloud, right? And it really started with the application performance monitoring. Then that sort of mushroomed, right? That mushroomed infrastructure logs, all of the CI/CD, all of that other stuff. I think phase two for us was, how do you get all of that into a single platform? And if you look at most of the market, it's disparate. This is the least consolidated market. The top 5 vendors only have 36% of share here. So the second phase was consolidating all of that capability, putting it in sort of a big data platform. That's what we've done, right? In the last 3-4 years, that's sort of where we are in the second phase. That's where we're at. The next phase, I think, is going to be defined a lot. What we're calling it is the intelligent observability platform. Because of AI, which your readers are very familiar with, right? With AI and big data, that is going to influence outcomes in observability going forward. It's a generational change, really.
Okay.
Right.
So you also mentioned you have thousands of customers here in India, right?
Yeah.
Can you name a few and also help me understand how your platform has helped them?
Yeah, I can name quite a few. I think the way to think about it is, with us, we essentially serve the entire customer base, all the way from small to large across the world. In India in particular, what has happened is a lot of the digital native businesses have adopted us. The business model in India, I think, there's no other. Right, frankly, I was shocked. I hadn't been to, we were talking a little bit before this, right? I hadn't been to India in a few years. The fact that you can get things delivered to you in under 10 minutes, that just doesn't happen in other countries. Trust me, I've been to a lot of places. And therefore, the demands on the application and the performance skyrockets here, right? So a lot of those companies that that you order, the Swiggies of the world, right? The Ola Cabs of the world, right? All of that. They use us as a platform to make sure that the applications are performant.
When you say cloud native applications, right? Are there any companies which are not using any observability platforms currently, or everyone uses these platforms?
Because there's a huge definition for observability. It's defined as about a $30 billion market.
Yeah.
Everyone claims observability, right? We have some form of observability. If you really unpack it, everybody has something around that. Very few have something that is comprehensive, right? That monitors everything from a user experience all the way to the back-end applications to their AI calls, all of that. That we estimate it's a very small percentage of enterprises. Furthermore, there's roughly about 30 million software engineers in the world. I think there's more, but that's the latest. That's probably close to that just in India, right? But I think there's more. But the estimation is, out of that 30 odd million, only about 2 million deal with observability on a consistent basis, right? And part of it is when you're an engineer, you don't go to school or wake up or dream about being an observability engineer, right? You kind of go into that. So that's the opportunity for us.
Let's talk about AI, right? Today
Yeah.
we're going to generative AI. So since ChatGPT came into picture, right? It has been what, a year and a half?
Yeah, November 22, right? You remember that day, right?
So how did it impact the generative AI impact the observability market?
Yeah, I mean, it affected everything, right? The whole world. I think it affected. The world changed for sure. November 22. I mean, AI has been around for a while. LLMs have been around since 2017, as you know, as your readers probably know. But that one element, the ChatGPT, changed things for a while. So how is it going to affect observability? I think it'll be interesting. I have a few things. Before that, what I will say is I came from the cyber industry, where we used a lot of AI to help protect us against the bad guys, right? And so that was, and that evolved from machine learning, right, into the old Bayesian stuff, and then it got more sophisticated, and then we use better ML models. And LLM morphed into a couple of things. One is generative, as you know, but the other is also comparative, right? So models like BERT, as an example, do comparative. So that gives you all the anomaly piece. So why do I say all of that? How does that apply to observability? I think it applies to observability in three specific ways, and that's how we're seeing it now. It's fast changing, so when I talk to you maybe 6 months from now or so, it'll be different. But the three ways we see it. First is it's going to democratize observability. Today, if you have people who come on the platform, it'll change UIs forever, right? Why shouldn't you have more of a Google-like UI where you come in, ask a question, and in plain English rather than learn some sort of query language, right? So I think the first thing is it'll democratize observability, and that's what we released. Under the New Relic AI umbrella, we released something called AI Assistant. It's called Grok, before Mr. Musk stole that name, right? And so, but it was AI Assistant. So that'll help you. So I think that's the first way. The second way, I think, is everyone's talked about this concept of AI ops, right? The AI operations. The issue with AI and ML is false positives, right? And because nobody wants more alerts, nobody wants actions that take action on bad information. I think that gets more acute, right? So because with generative and you have multiple models and you have contextual, generative really gives you contextual information. Because we have contextual information now, I think you're going to get more into these are the conditions in the past that have caused this issue. Now I can get into more predictive analysis. And then you'll drive responses on top of that. Today, there's nobody who can really drive responses on top of the AI information yet. That's going to change. So I think that's the second way. The third way is that observability, every company, there's no question, every company out there has some LLM project to make their application, everyone. But it's going to be mixed in with their regular application. So observability has the opportunity, we can monitor an application end to end, but also start to give you data on what the LLM and the AI portion of that application is. So I think those are the three ways you're going to see observability evolve.
Okay. So recently you launched New Relic AI, right?
That's right.
So have you made it accessible to developers, and have you received any feedbacks from the developer community for this product?
Yes, a ton. So we launched it in public preview back in May. We launched two pieces. We launched AI Assistant, and then we launched something called AI Monitoring, which monitors all the Anthropics, the llamas, all of that. So it does sort of AI monitoring, and it's an extensible model. So you can extend it. To there's 300,000 plus models out there, right? Yeah. We won't have exact coverage for it, but it's extensible. So we had that in public preview for the last six or so months. What we're announcing now is that we're GAing that, right? So we have roughly about 10,000 customers that have used the AI with us. So we have some good scar tissue before we release that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you also talk about the models you use? I mean, the large language models which are powering this New Relic AI.
We use multiple ones, right? I mean, we use everything on Bedrock, right? We use everything on. We use everything, all the Llama pieces. We use all of the open AI pieces. So we use a multitude of models. The big issue is not just the specific models, but the cost. So right now, there's about an 8-to-1 difference between classical AI and generative, right? So we also have to make sure that our customers can afford what we're doing. So the trick for us is to be able to take some of those models, sometimes even bring those models back to our data center. We run our own models, and in other cases use the AWS and Azure type models. But the genius here is to know when to use those models to sort of keep costs down as we go through observability. So we'll use a variety, and we'll continue to tweak them. I can't tell you, next week we'll end up using something a little bit different. But the idea is to make sure that it's effective, but also cost effective.
Okay, so does it mean your customer has the choice to, choose between these sets of large language models?
When we do things like the AI assistant, which was for example, or we even do some of the more when we do AI assistant, we don't give a customer choice. I mean that's us. They don't. That's not the outcome they want. And even when we do some of the AI ops piece, that's us. Customers really want outcomes on that. They're less. Where they care about the models is when we delve into AI monitoring. Right, we start to monitor, and that they have flexibility to choose. But the other two, they're more interested in outcomes, and they want us to go run it.
Okay. So you have integrated generative AI, right? But so have your competitors.
Yes.
So how would you say New Relic is different from the, let's take Datadog, for example, or the other big competitors you see out there?
Yeah. Well, we were the first to get in there, right? That doesn't mean you're all the best. I think the genius in this is not the models themselves or AI themselves. It's how they're used to fundamentally transform the platform that we have, right? And because we have a single platform, the big advantage we have is that because we're a single platform, the minute we turn on AI for any capability, everyone gets it, right? So every capability that is included there. The minute we let out AI Assistant as an example, every capability in our, whether it's logs, CI/CD, security, all of that got that capability. Same when we roll out AI monitoring. We're not rolling out AI monitoring for APM and then 3 months later roll out AI monitoring for infrastructure, 3 months later do it. It's all, the entire platform gets that. That's unique for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But down the line you see everyone doing this pretty similar same thing, right?
Down the line, everyone is going to, I mean, it's an arms race, right? Yeah. And I think those who've lived in it and continue to, I mean, you have to continue to move and innovate in this space. There's no question about it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you also see a scenario, AI gets matured and reaches such a stage that you don't need observability platforms at all? Do you see that happening?
I hope that's not the case.
Right. But there is a possibility, is it?
Look, I mean, I think to me, the approach shouldn't be that the answer is AI, what's the question, right? I think it's going to be, AI is going to make observability better. There's a long way to go in observability, and it'll never stop. Every major inflection point, right? And I'm older than you, so I can take you to the back when you went from centralized to decentralized computing, when you got into cloud, when we got into mobile. Every major inflection point meant that observability took a step function up, right? And I feel that's going to be the same way with AI. So I don't think AI replaces observability. It will enhance a lot of areas, just like with cybersecurity. I don't think it'll replace it, but the fact that it does things like summarization, as an example, better than anything, will just make it better.
Okay, fine. Let's talk about some of the top challenges you see going forward, when it comes to observability platforms.
Yes.
And how do you plan to solve those?
Yeah.
Also, can you share some feedback from the customers you're receiving currently about even New Relic AI?
Yes, no question. So I've probably talked, since I've come to New Relic, and it's been a relatively short journey for me so far, but I've talked to probably close to 130 customers across the globe, right? So I spend a lot of time talking to customers. So we'll start with challenges and then we'll hit the AI piece. So from a challenges perspective with observability, there's a few things. One is there's just more things to observe, right? And even in AI, right? Think about AI, just in terms of more things. How is Jensen Huang going to make his next trillion? How's he going to make it? It's not going to be by building chips for the data center, for the hyperscalers, because they're going to eventually white label that. We've seen that. You know that, right? I mean, that's what Graviton came with Intel. So he's got to move that stuff to the edge, right? And it's not just large language models. You want to get the realm of small language models as well. You want to move it close to the edge, which means there's more things to observe, right? So there's more things to instrument and observe. Now, what customers tell me as well is that they don't want to have proprietary observability. In other words, put our agent or anybody else's agent everywhere, because there's going to be so many devices, there's going to be so many things to observe. So a lot of our customers are asking us to embrace open source and open telemetry, right, specifically, which is a portion of open source that is very relevant for the observability space.
Okay.
So we're embracing that in a big way, right? So the ability to mix both proprietary and OTel and give you that same example. So that's one thing, just a proliferation, right?
Okay.
The second big thing that we hear from customers is that the observability costs have grown proportionally with the cloud costs.
Okay.
And they're like, well, you know, we can't have that. We wanted to grow disproportionately. So the ability to do things like to be able to control the usage and cost, and that's why we introduced a consumption model, a compute model. We've introduced things like telemetry data pipelines, all of that, and cost management tools. I think that's a big thing. So how do I observe everything I have, but how do I make sure I can do it in a way that makes it effective for me, right? So that's sort of the second thing. And then the third thing for them is consolidation, because as I mentioned, it's very much a unconsolidated space, and you have to have a lot of expertise to go sort that. Now in India, you have a lot of expertise, right? That's not the case in the rest of the world. And so how do you consolidate it onto one platform? So that's where, in terms of AI challenges themselves, there's always nicks and twists whenever you release something, right? So for example, with AI assistant in itself, some of the answers were maybe they were too technical, or they were not comprehensive enough in some cases. So we had to build capability to say, how do you query the query, right? How do you query the answer? And that sort of helped. That's how we're overcoming some of that.
Okay. So you mentioned you talked to a lot of customers, right?
Yeah.
And you talked to a lot of customers here in India, I believe, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go see a couple more just this afternoon.
So is there any difference of what Indian customers are telling you and what customers from rest of the world are telling you?
A little bit.
Is it?
A little bit.
Tell me about
I would say a couple of things. One is, as I mentioned earlier, the application market, the market in India is just moving at breakneck speed. And it's moving at breakneck speed because of digital, right? The fact that I can order something from several of these quick commerce vendors and get something, one of our customers can get you something in 8 minutes and 47 seconds. That's crazy. Maybe normal for you, it's just not normal, right? So there's a huge dependency on that. So that is one thing that they say. So they're always innovating. Second is much more sophisticated. Okay. Right, you have a lot of developers who've grown up with this. As I mentioned, we have 12,000 customers. I mean, whenever we hold an event here in India, it's packed. So people are living in the product. So it's much more of a sophisticated use case, which is good and challenging for us. Right, that's what makes you stronger. Right?
Okay, so last question, Ashan. So coming back to your competitors again. Let's talk a bit about pricing, right? How are your products priced compared to your competitors?
I always say that people buy on value, but from a model standpoint, we made the move to consumption, because what happened is a lot of the pricing models that exist out there is that you buy a fixed cost for a host. Well, if you use Lambda or using serverless or using Kubernetes, that just mushrooms, right? Especially in dynamic environments. So we, about 3 years ago, moved to a consumption model. So you only pay for what you use. And we're now moving that to more of a compute model, right? So you only pay for what you use, right? And so you ingest the data, and so that's going to be very from a business model standpoint. Now that took us 3 years. That took us 3 years to get there. And so the competitors will have a multi-year journey to get over there. And this is the right thing. It's not, investors don't like it as much, but customers love it, right? And I think over time, if customers like it, investors will come into, will like it.
So New Relic is the only one having this kind of pricing model?
Yes, we're the only ones. Now, there are other places, there are other players in other markets. You look at the Snowflakes, the Databricks of the world, they have that. we're the only one with a true consumption model. There's 4 consumption models there, right? FOUX consumption models out there, but we're the only ones with a true one.
Thank you, Ashan, for this insightful conversation. It was nice talking to you.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you for your time.
All right.